Greetings all, and welcome to Esoteric Babble. Today's babbling is a little bit of a clickbaitish topic. God is an illusion? ? Even though a clickbaitish sounding topic, it is a very interesting one and worth thinking about. But please do stay tuned, as they say, until the end, because at that point I really want to be clear about what's being said here. Now, this topic comes up in many places. If you read the Gospel of Ramakrishna, he talks about how it's very difficult for people to sort of approach an abstract, impersonal Brahman. And according to Ramakrishna, we need a personal deity. I've also heard Swami Tadatmananda talk about this topic, saying that, there's kind of a discussion between dualistic Vedantists and non-dualistic Vedantists about whether God is part of the illusory world or not. To me, the way I'm going to approach this is sort of mathematically. And maybe when I say mathematically, I mean in a Euclidean way. So if we look, or if you ever read through the first book of the Hermetica, this line jumped out at me. In Greek, it is hoda panton pater honus. That is mind, the father of all things. Now, being the father of all things, I think we could read that as the generator, the creator of all things. And of all things would be kind of reality, actually. Previous to that line in the Hermetica, we have hodenus pater theos, mind, which is father, or maybe the divine father, or God, father, creator. However you want to take that apart. But the point is that there's an equation between mind and not just someone's personal mind. This is a sort of a mind that transcends anyone's personal mind. The mind is equated with this creator, or pater, and also with theos, divine or God. Now, we can also couple that with the first line of the Dhammapada. It's also in the first part of the second verse, which is Mano Pubangama Dhamma, Mano Seta, Mano Maya. That is, phenomena, Dhamma, are preceded by mind, governed by mind, and are created by mind. So at this point, there's definitely an agreement on this idea of mind. And here, you could perhaps read it as personal mind, but I'm not sure that we would only want to read it that way. Now, one other part of this puzzle, so to speak, is that we can also read that in the Paticca Samuppada, in the dependent origination, the Buddha mentions that avidya pachaya sankhara, that on account of or because of ignorance, all conditioned things, compounded things, arise. And of course, in this realm of manifestation, and compounded things actually account for all of this world of change, this realm of manifestation. I want to double back for a minute. I want to mention something about nous, or mano, or mind. I think that it's fair to say that when we talk about this transcendent mind, our minds are not completely separate from that mind. And I think that the neo-platonists would agree with that. So just keep that in mind as we go forward, that the transcendent mind, our mind, is a part of this much larger mind as well. And so the mathematical part of this whole proof, so to speak, is that if we think about mind as being, on the one hand, the creator of all things, and as being divine or as being God, but we also acknowledge with the Buddha that what gives rise to this phenomenal world is ignorance. Or to put it another way, that all of reality that is presented to our senses or presented to us by our senses is Maya or illusion. Then we can equate God with illusion then. And this concept of the mind being illusion was actually brought up in, or was the topic of discussion in our episode on The Mind is the Matrix. So just to recap, we've said here that mind is the creator of all things. Both the Buddha and the Hermetica agree on that. In the Hermetica, it is also asserted that this creator mind is God. And it is also asserted by the Buddha that this reality that we experience is due to ignorance, and is also called in other Indian traditions, and even in Buddhism, it is described as Maya. So, and actually, I think that all spiritual aspirants would agree that the world in which we live is a world of illusion. We misunderstand, we misinterpret, or just don't have access to the absolute, the unchanging, real reality. Now, at this point, it is incumbent upon me to mention that as inflammatory a statement as God is an illusion might be for some people, it is necessary for God to be that way for those who worship a God and worship a personal God. And the reasoning goes as follows. Our wakeful state is often, when we think about that and how it relates to the enlightened state, the analogy is often given of one who is sleeping and dreaming, how that state relates to our, again, normal, baseline, wakeful state. If I am dreaming, if one is dreaming, if you are dreaming, in my dream, I can interact with those in my dream world. I cannot interact with someone sitting beside me on the side of a bed or on a couch near me. I can't talk to that person while I'm dreaming. I would have to wake up. So for one in this state, this wakeful state of ours that is still asleep compared to the fully enlightened state, for one to interact with a God or to interact with a personal God, it requires that God to be part of this illusory world. So even though God is an illusion might sound a bit inflammatory or offensive to some people, it really is just the way it has to be. While we go about our business in this non-enlightened state, we need access to beings who are likewise part of this illusory world. And here we must now discuss how God is not an illusion. And that is to recognize that most spiritual teachers, if not all, would assent to some form of the following proposition, that though we live in a world of manifestation, there is some reality beyond this that is unchanging, which gives rise to all that we experience. the Buddha said it as, he said that there is the unborn, the unproduced, the unmade, the unformed, the uncompounded. We can read Wang Po or Dionysius, the Areopagite, on this to hear about how it's either the Buddha mind, the one mind, or the Godhead that is beyond any category of thought. It's not long, short, heavy, does not possess color or magnitude or quantity. So here is where I would like to kind of wrap things up, because and of course I should say, very famous one is obviously the Vedantists would say that there is Brahman. If this reality, this transcendent, unchanging reality, the one of the Neoplatonists, if that is what we're referring to when we use the word God, then God is not an illusion. Except keep in mind that we're using a word, and any concept we form of that is still an illusion. Anything we can say about that is not, strictly speaking, correct. And that is a whole interesting topic even for those who become enlightened. Supposedly they use a word like I just conventionally. They know there's no I anymore. They know that the way we experience reality is not the way things actually are. But they go about, we have to, if we're going to use language, we have to use it the only way that we can use it. I'm sorry I'm fumbling here, but the final point is that if we think about that unchanging one reality, unformed, unmade, unborn, unproduced, so on and so forth, even thinking about it is illusory, but we have an intuition that it is there. And if God is the word that points to that, then even though that word itself is part of the illusion, we know that that to which it is pointing is not. And of course, here it's worth mentioning my favorite, or one of my favorite lines from the Dhammapada, verse 170. I will just sort of paraphrase here. See the world as a bubble, see it as a mirage. The one who sees the world this way escapes death, or is not seen by the king of death. I hope that this has been somewhat interesting, perhaps helpful, and I would love to hear what you have to say on this topic, particularly where you think I have gone astray. As always, a deeply heartfelt wish for all beings everywhere in any plane of existence to be happy. Peace.